It's Georgia and Clemson, August the 31st. Yes, this Saturday, 12 o'clock on ABC. I'm going to give you the prediction. I'm going to give you the lowdown. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think about this matchup. The good, the bad, the ugly, hopefully the joyous, but could be depressing in just a moment. Welcome to the channel. I'm Brian. I'm glad you're here. Whew, we've waited so long to get here, and we are here, meaning college football. Here, in fact, college football kicks off, like the full swing of week 1 kicks off on Thursday. So, hey, I hope you'll subscribe to the channel. I just like to talk college football. I like talking about Clemson. I have fun here. Remember, it's just a game, but we can have some passion about the game and keep it civil as well. I hope you will subscribe. I do appreciate you being here. Again, it is free, and it is the easiest way to support the channel. Now, if you're a Clemson fan, you know that you're a 14-point underdog in this game. In fact, everybody in the world believes that Georgia is not only going to cover as far as the 13.5-point favorite that they currently are on this Tuesday, August the 27th. A lot of people believes that Georgia will, in fact, go beyond that. Clemson, on the other hand, they hired Matt Luke, former Georgia offensive line coach. Even Georgia fans will look at you and tell you, I think Clemson's trash. I think Dabo is awful. I think your fight song sounds like it was written by a bunch of drunk choral directors, but we like Matt Luke. Matt Luke can actually coach. Clemson has tried to make some moves over the past few years to erase the poor offensive coaching hires over the past 5 years. Yeah, if some of you Georgia fans are watching this and you're like, oh, it's a transfer portal, man. I'm not telling you that transfer portal hasn't played a part in it, but all you have to do is go back to the offensive coaching hires over the past 4, maybe 5 years. And that wherein lies Clemson's problems. If you ever see our defense have a problem, it's because, well, the offense has hung them out to dry over and over. But I don't blame the players. I blame the guys who are making hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, according to who they are, for this, well, this result. But Clemson hired Garrett Riley year before last. Now they've hired Matt Luke, and we know it's going to take some time. But we, as Clemson fans, I use we, that term loosely, is hoping that things will turn around so that, well, we shock the world. Georgia, on the other hand, is 3 points away from going to another college football playoff. I mean, the one that only had 4 teams in it, and they would have went after their 3rd consecutive national championship. Now, whether they would have actually won it last year, I can't comment on that because, well, they did lose that game. 3 points in the SEC championship. But ever since then, there's only been, well, 1 game since then. It seems like Georgia, they have a chip on their shoulder. Just ask Florida State. Georgia took out their frustration on Florida State, even if Florida State did have players set out. Georgia went after them, saying, hey, listen, next year, the playoff, it's triple the size. And also, anyone who plays us after this point, we are going to ensure we make an example of you. That if anybody would be dumb enough to leave us out of a college football playoff, no matter its size, that we will prove to them that they're poor at making decisions and that we are the best team in the country. Now, for some of you, take and do with that as you will. But Georgia is on a mission. Yes, they lost players, but Georgia's been recruiting at an extremely high level on both sides of the football for a very long time. They also went to the transfer portal. At Clemson, that's it. Listen, I need to translate this for us Clemson fans. The transfer portal is used not only to get graduate players who wants to become coaches one day. There's teams out there who actually gets transfer players to bridge the gap in talent so they continue to be, national championship contending teams. I know it's bizarre. It's the weirdest thing. But that's what Georgia's done. They went back to the portal. They got some guys even after they lost some guys to the portal themselves. And the country as a whole, including Vegas, believes that Georgia is a 2-touchdown favorite. Now let's break down, starting with the quarterbacks, what has to happen. Now, Carson Beck threw for almost 4,000 yards last year, but he did have a good running back room, as Georgia always has. A good offensive line, good running back room, defense comes out there, sick 'em dogs, all that bunch of good stuff. But Carson Beck can play football and he can throw. Now, they did lose Brock Bowers, and everybody's laughing about that. But, I mean, come on. Ladd McConkey, he's gone. But they do have Dominique Lovick. They have a few other players. And they're Georgia. They're going to recruit well. They're going to go to the transfer portal, and they're going to scheme well. Mike Bobo actually did quite well last year. I'm sorry, folks, that I didn't buy into that. I'm just saying Todd Monken was that dadgum good. Anyway. But Carson Beck really doesn't have to do a lot in this ball game, or does he? Because one of Georgia's running backs, it's one of them, I think his last name's Robinson. There's two of them, so toss a quarter and see which one I get. He's not playing because he had to have surgery due to, I believe, turf toe. Trevor Etienne was trying his hand at Fast and Furious, if my mind, remembers correctly. So who knows if he'll play or not. Between you and I fully expect him to play. I don't care if he smacked a grandma across the face. He will be playing this game. But Georgia is known for having a deep running back room. So even with those two guys out, Georgia's still quite confident at running back. So the question is the game really between Clemson's front seven against Georgia's run game? But if they start to, Georgia's run game starts to have some problems, does Clemson put the pressure on Carson Beck? Let's talk about the defensive side of the football for Clemson. Yeah, we lost Xavier Thomas. Not making fun of you, do it. It's just hard to say. Tyler Davis, Jeremiah Trotter, Nate Wiggins. I know Andrew Makuba transferred out to Texas, but he really didn't play that much last year due to injury. But Clemson's front defensive line is not too shabby. In fact, it's one of the only things, Clemson's defense is one of the only things that gives Clemson fans hope. I've mentioned this to all you Tiger fans, that if Clemson's defense was as identityless as Clemson's offense over the past few years, we would have been 5-7 and 6-6. But our defense has been that good, led by coaches who actually have tenure, a lot of experience, and they know what they're doing. It's shocking what happens when you hire really good coaches as a unit. Go figure. But the front seven, you can start out with Peter Woods, a true sophomore that last year was playing on the interior of the line, and at 6'2", 315 pounds, he is now playing defensive end. Yeah, that Mama Jamma's massive, but he can move. They put him at DN. Then you got on the other side, his bookend, TJ Parker, who I believe in high school was called something like quarterback killer. Both those guys lived up to it last year. You got Cape Hart in the middle, somebody else I can't remember right off the top of my head. And then you move to the linebackers, and you've got Barrett Carter. Now, Barrett Carter was supposed to be drafted in the first round last year, but he didn't have the season that he wanted. He came back to Clemson, and we're glad that he came back to Clemson. You have Wade Wooders next to him. And then, according to who you talk to, Sammy Brown will be mixed in there, the top recruit we've ever signed at linebacker. He's going to be playing some. Mixed in with Khalil Barnes. Khalil Barnes was a true freshman last year, and the guy from his spring game up to his very last game of the entire season did not fail to entertain us. The guy came out, put on a clinic. In fact, he's one of the big reasons that we beat South Carolina last year. You get to the secondary, yeah, we've been banged up here and there with Shelton Lewis and Jaden Lucas, two DBs that's, well, they've had their problems, due to health. I don't know where they're at today and whether they'll get to play much this Saturday. But up until recently, they've been banged up. On the other hand, Clemson has a guy named Tavoy Fagan. This is a true freshman that put on a clinic in the spring game. Yes, I use that term a lot. It reminded me a lot of Khalil Barnes last year. He went out there, had an interception in the spring game, turned around, almost had two more. He did drop them, but he was in the right place at the right time, which I will take that every time. You have Avion Terrell. That name sounds familiar to some of you non-Clemson fans. It's because it's A.J. Terrell, the current Atlanta Falcon, unless they've traded him over the past 5 minutes since I started this video. It's his brother. And he did a great job last year, and we're expecting great things from him this year. You have R.J. Mickens. He's, I believe, a redshirt senior. He's the old man of the group. He's going to be quarterbacking these guys. So no matter if it's one of these young guys who's getting to play a lot, or whether it's a true freshman who is playing, he's going to be back out. He's going to be back there commanding that secondary. So does that mean that Georgia will not have success in the passing game? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying Clemson's defense is the reason that Clemson will stay in this game. Let's flip to the other side of the ball, if you will. Clemson's offense has been abysmal over the past 3 years. Clemson was known through the Watson, even the Kelly Bryant years, and Trevor Lawrence years as a team that could sneeze and put up 40 to 50 points. They were a team that if you played them, no matter who you were, they were the favorite. And they'd let you know they were the favorite. And they won most of those games. And then something happened. And I'm going to spare most of the details, even though I've already touched on it, with the lack of coaching development on the offensive side of the football, has created this monster that is not so monstrous. It's a monster of disappointment on the Clemson offensive side of the football. Let's start not with Cade Klubnik. Let's start with the offensive line. Over the past few years, they've been guided by a former Clemson player who I'm not knocking. I mean, imagine this. You played at Clemson. You go into coaching. You're at another school for a few years, and your alma mater calls you and says, hey, would you like to be the offensive line coach at Clemson? Of course you do. So I'm not going to take shots at our former offensive line coach. But between questions of development and then just injury and blah, 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 Clemson's offensive line has barely been able to block a gnat. Just ask Cade Klubnik. His brains were knocked all over the place last year. I'm surprised he can even spell the word cat after how many times he was sacked last year. Popped and knocked around, and then the very same drunks who gets mad at me for questioning Dabo for hiring some of the guys on the offensive side of the football will turn around, take a tube sock, fill it with bars of soap, and smack away at a quarterback who can't spell his name. He's been hit so hard. Make that make sense. Anyway, the offensive line now is being led by one of the best, I believe, not only offensive line coaches in the country, I believe he's one of the best position coaches in all of college football. And that's Matt Luke. You guys know him if you're a Georgia fan. But he's not turning water into wine. He's going to have time. So I'm not putting a lot of expectation on him for this season. I'd like to see the offensive line get a little better, and I think it will get a little better. But enough to hold Georgia's front seven at bay? I don't know. Then let's move on to Cade Klubnik, a guy who never lost a game when he was playing in high school. And you're like, hey, he must have played 1A football up in Idaho. No, he was the quarterback for a 6A Texas football high school team called Westlake. You ever heard of them? They're incredible. He never lost. He won 3 state championships. In 2 of those years, he was the starter. The guy was highly rated. It's such a high level of football, you can't fake being good, because at that level, you'd get put in a coma. Well, it comes to Clemson, and between that offensive line and then questionable play calling and a lack of development, he has picked up some bad habits. He'll throw into double coverage. He'll stare down wide receivers. And, that pretty much sums it up. If you're Georgia, you know what you want to do. You want to take the run game away from Clemson. I'll get to Phil Maffa in just a second. One of the very bright spots on our offensive side of the ball. Probably my favorite player on Clemson's football team, Phil Maffa is. But I'll get to him in a second. But if you're Georgia, you put the game on Cade's shoulders, because up until this point, it's not only Cade, it's the rest of the team around him, except for Maffa and maybe a player here or there, who has proven that they can't rise to the occasion when they play against a solid defense with a solid defensive coach that actually can scheme well. Cade Klubnik, this is a make or break year for him, not just as a Clemson Tiger, but for him. It's been stacked against him. I mean, imagine snapping the ball and then having to run for your life. Then when you throw the ball to wide open wide receivers who were on scholarship to catch a football at the D1 level, what do? They drop it. My point is, it's not all on Cade, but he will receive the negative criticism because of it. But Cade cannot stare down wide receivers, especially against Georgia. And he can't hold on to the ball too long. He also needs to step up into the pocket, well, if we can create one. Let's move to the running game. Remember that game against Notre Dame last year? Notre Dame came into that Clemson game ranked, I want to say, top 10. And they had some good things going for them. Will Shipley gets hurt. Phil Maffa, who I believe he's been playing second fiddle way too long, he comes in, he rushes for 186 yards. He put on a clinic in that ball game, and I believe that he is one of the main reasons that we won that game and won a lot of the games the rest of the season. Georgia knows this, but I will tell you this: Phil Maffa is a back that is much like a Georgia running back. He can create a hole where there's not a hole. He's very physical. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's not slow. He's a lot faster than what you realize. Clemson will try to utilize him, and they should. I just hope they don't try to overcompensate with him because they're not so creative in the offensive scheme and get Phil hurt. That's one of my main concerns in this game. Let's go to the wide receivers. Wide receivers at Clemson, they've been getting hurt so much over the past few years that when you sign with Clemson to be a wide receiver, they automatically give you one of those handicap parking tags with your face on it. And they're like, hey, man, I feel fine. Just wait. You'll just step out of the car and something will pop and you're done for 4 games. That's what's happened to Clemson's wide receivers. But supposedly everyone, for the most part, is healthy, and we brought in these 2 true freshmen, Tyler Moore. Good God. TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco, bring these guys in. One's from Florida, one's from Texas. A lot of hype is going on with both of these guys. TJ Moore especially. Now, almost all of Clemson faithful is putting the high hopes of the passing game and the return to wide receiver U on these 2 guys. Yeah, true freshmen. That's right. Now, let's not talk about offensive scheme. Let's just throw it on these 2, 18-year-old guys, and maybe they'll fix everything, because that always works. I believe that Georgia's going to try to lock these guys down. That brings up the next guys. Antonio Williams, a junior who last year did not have a lot of playing time because basically he was out most of the season with injury. The season before that, right out of I believe Irmo High School, the guy was unbelievable. He was going up in between defenders, catching it. He's very fast. Do we see he and Tyler Brown, a guy who exploded last year, do we see these 2 guys come out, slip out into the open and have some nice air to catch the ball? Maybe some space to use their speed. Then we move on to our tight end room, the most underutilized room in all of Clemson. Do we see Jake Brennanstone get involved? Do we see the other tight ends get involved in this game? I don't know. Really, this game comes down to the creativity of the offensive side of the football for Clemson, and if we'll even try against Georgia. Because Georgia, I'll tell you this, if you're watching this video, you're like, put the beer down. I know. Stop chugging the beer, Grandma, and screaming, go Dogs, go Dogs. Just give me a second. If Clemson's offense is not creative, you won't have to do much. All you'll have to do is just lock down Maffa and then let the chaos ensue. That's my main concern with this game. If Clemson's offense, if they were coached as well as the defense is and developed like the defense, I'd be talking a lot of trash to you right now. But that's the reason why I'm about to give the prediction that I am. I'm a person that after you burn me a couple of times, once, but especially a couple of times, you have to prove it to me. I don't care if you walk up to me with tears running down your face, with all forms of apology, even apologizing in different languages. I don't care. Just prove it to me. I'm not going to continuously be burned, and Clemson's offense has continuously burned itself. Once again, I really don't blame the players. I put the responsibility on the shoulders of the guys who are paid a lot of money to do their job and to develop these guys, to make in-game adjustments, to be creative. That is who I lay this responsibility squarely on their shoulders, because remember, players comes and goes, but a lot of coaches, they can stay in their position for 5, 10, 15 plus years. If you just keep paying them, they keep showing up. The question is, are they doing their job? Or are they a yes man? Or are they someone who graduated from the school and that's the only reason they have their job? Did they know the current talking points that impresses the decision makers? Is that the reason they have their job? Because that would explain why Clemson's offense has fell off. How it went from a team that, if this was Clemson in 2018 playing this Georgia team, Georgia, you would get your head beat in. I don't care who you think you are, you would lose. But unfortunately for me, that's not who's playing for Clemson now. And those coaches, that's not who's coaching for Clemson now. Unfortunately, I'm stuck. I am stuck with what we have, and I'm having to hope, yes, have hope that Clemson beats you, not because of their defense, but because the lack of offensive scheme, because of the lack of offensive development. And that lays, once again, squarely on the shoulders of coaching. So you want my prediction here at the over 21-minute mark? Here it is. Football is a game of strategy. It's very rarely won by hope. And if your football program has got to the point to where you have to hope to win, especially after you've reached the mountain as many times as Dabo Swinney did, something has went terribly wrong. And unfortunately, until Clemson's offense proves to me that they're nothing like they were last year or the year before that or the year before that, or even the year before that when they had Trevor, but Trevor's talent and Etienne's talent and the guys around them were so good you could call a quarterback kneel and it would turn into a 30-yard gain. Until you prove to me that it's nothing like that, I'm sorry. I have to be realistic. And unless a miracle takes place, I won't say a miracle, but unless some major things goes in Clemson's favor and the offense doesn't come out and play like they have the past 3 years, unfortunately, my prediction is the Georgia Bulldogs beats Clemson to the tune of 27-10. If Clemson forms fumbleitis, throw a couple of extra touchdowns on there. If Clemson's defense plays incredible and Clemson's offense has a game plan that is not mundane, that you could go to a local high school and pull one of their offensive coordinators and have him call, if it's actually creative and it's aggressive, maybe we have a different outcome. But transparently, I'll believe it when I see it. I call the Bulldogs winning this game somewhere 24-10, 27-10, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Tell me in the comments below, who do you think wins the game? If you don't mind sharing, why? I'd really like to hear that. Hope you'll subscribe to the channel. It is growing. I see a bunch of you are in here. I hope you will subscribe. It's the easiest way to support the channel. Hey, we have a good time in here. I hate giving predictions like this, but you know what, folks? It's just football. It's just football. We can get all mad and upset about it and have a good time with it, but it's a good pastime. Even if you dislike me, you dislike my prediction, I am glad you're here. Let me know that you're here. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the notification bell. If you want to support on a monthly basis, there's a join button below here. If you don't see it, you're probably on an iPhone. Y'all take care of yourself. As always, go Tigers.